For the next little bit, we're going to talk about fall hazards in steel erection. If you're in construction, there is every likelihood that you are going to encounter situations where there are fall hazards. Various stripes and varieties. Steel erection is very, very much involved in at-height work because we are very often in the situation where we may encounter fall hazards. So we want you to understand what the hazards are, how to address them, and so we're going to spend quite a bit of time considering this subject, not just in these few videos, but in other curriculum that we'll be using later on. Initially, what I want you to understand is that work at any height above 6 feet requires 100% fall protection. This means the use of your dual lanyard system, the use of your SRL, the use of your beamer, the use of your cheater cable. All of these are potential tools for you to use in order to successfully remain 100% tied off at heights above 6 feet. So we need to talk about that. Now, when it comes to a building partially being finished where there are exposed edges, they must have guardrails installed. We very often are contracted to do that, so that may be part of what you do. So we'll talk about guardrails, the installation of them, and all of that perhaps a bit later on. When you are bolting up, something that you want to remember, bolted connection needs to have 2 wrench-tight bolts installed before you release the hoisting cable. So before you cut the crane loose, make sure that whatever connection you have has a minimum of 2 wrench-tight bolts before you cut the crane loose. Now, if, for example, it has 10 holes, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, your foreman will tell you how many bolts he wants to put in there. 50% perhaps, or whatever. But the minimum is 2. So just keep that in mind as you're connecting and bolting up. Joists can be very unstable. They can be very wobbly. They're lighter material, generally speaking. And so don't walk out on joists which are not secured. They need to be secured both ends. They may be welded on both sides at both ends. They may be bolted down with OSHA bolts, but don't be walking on joists that are not secured, because that presents a genuine fall hazard, and that's the way we would like for you to address that. Larger joists, they're long spans. You'll put them down on the ground and put the X bracing in them before you actually pick them up in tandem. There are jobs where we will panelize joists. We have done that in the past, where we will set the joists up and then pick them up in panels as we've put 5 or 6 of them together, put all the bridging in, got them squared up, set up, and then picked them up at one time with a crane. Not something we commonly do, but we do it from time to time. When you're up on the iron, one of the fall hazards you need to address is tripping hazards, various kinds of tripping hazards, tools, equipment that's left up there, or for some reason is there for the moment, cables that are run around beams, or even the beam post attachment themselves. All of these present potential tripping hazards, so we want you to be aware. If you can remove a tripping hazard, do that if at all possible. Then also, loose clothing or clothing that doesn't fit well can be very, very much of an issue. What I want you to do is to look at the experienced iron workers, see how they dress, and dress appropriately. This involves the right kind of boots for the work that you're doing. It involves the work pants, involves your shirts and everything that goes with that. So once again, they can catch on things and then cause a fall. Ice and snow and loose dirt can also cause you to lose your footing. So one of the big things that you need to concentrate on a lot as you are doing steel erection is what I call situational awareness. You need to know what's going on around you. Pay attention to what your connecting partner is doing, what the crane operator is doing, what other people are doing around you, and what's happening around you. Situational awareness will help you with regard to fall hazards so that you are not getting yourself in a bad situation simply by not paying attention. Openings in floors and roofs must be guarded as soon as the decking's installed. We do not cut holes for other trades. We do not cut any holes beyond what is strictly our scope of work. So understand, just because you have a torch and somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, hey, can you cut this hole for me? Do me a favor." We don't do that for other trades. If it's specifically required in our scope of work, we'll take care of it. But aside from that, a hole, once it's cut, you become responsible for it. And there are a whole number of other things that go with the responsibility of cutting a hole. So, in the main, understand we don't cut holes for other people. Also, scaffolding. Scaffolding needs to be stable and fully erected, and that needs to be in accordance with what the manufacturer requires. The planks have to be fully installed. That means if you have a frame and there's a capacity for 3 planks, there need to be 3 planks across. It needs to be fully planked. And fall protection such as guardrail or fall arrest systems need to be used when you're working at heights above 6 feet. Also, boom lifts. If you're using an aerial lift, a boom lift, then you must have a personal fall arrest system on, a harness, and be tied off. There are places down around the bottom where you can tie off. Also, bear in mind that your feet should be on the floor of the platform. So you have to have a harness on when you're in a boom lift, even if you're only moving it from here to there. So keep that in mind as well. Scissor lifts, a bit of a different thing. Some scissor lifts in general, because it's a elevated mobile working platform, is not necessarily required that you have a harness on and be tied off. However, on some sites it is required as part of a 100% fall protection program, which AGC may have. So you need to be very aware. Is this a site where I need to have a personal fall arrest system on while I'm in a scissor lift and be tied off? That is a concern. So make sure that you know what's required on the site that you're on. We're going to leave it there. We're going to come back to this subject later on. But for the moment, we're going to stop right there and consider these things in relation to fall hazards in steel erection.